Coming to you from a cozy little condo high atop Old Fourth Ward, Atlanta. Welcome to The Ron Show on America One Radio. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
And by the way, we do appear weekdays as well at Progressive Voices via TuneIn 7 to 8 p.m. I'm working on the audio work pieces for the show, just to bear with me on that. Anyway, thank you for listening however you do, whether it's America One Radio, whether it's Progressive Voices via TuneIn, whether it's via podcast. I thank you for listening. If you are someone who has been listening to this show for a while, you're probably going to think right away, oh, Ron's going to sit here and brag about how great day 3 of the DNC was, how fantastic Tim Walz's speech was. Actually, I'd give it a B minus, maybe a B plus. And the only reason I'm less pom-pom waving enthusiastic about Tim Walz's speech is because it's pretty much the speech he's been given just in the short time, by the way. Let's cut him a little slack here. The short time that he's been the vice presidential pick of Kamala Harris' campaign. And now that he's officially the nominee of the Democratic Party, we can say he is the nominee of the Democratic Party for the office of vice president. It was a good speech. It's just one that I've heard before. And so I remember when yours truly on this show started gravitating towards the notion of Tim Walz being the right pick for Kamala Harris, and I still 1,000% believe that that's the case. When we look at all of the other options, Pete Buttigieg, Josh Shapiro, among them, it just made absolute perfect sense, and maybe even a little bit of a wishness within my push. In my push for a politician like Tim Walz to be elevated to such a lofty perch, because he's not like most politicians. He's not wealthy. He's not a stock trader. He doesn't own multiple homes. He's just the unpolitician kind of politician who somehow still managed to be elevated to two loftier positions before. He had a seat in Congress representing a red district in Minnesota, and he became governor of his home state. There is a folksiness about him that is legitimate. You can tell when it's made up, and it ain't made up. What we see of Tim Walz is very much Tim Walz. And last night was a really good representation of who Tim Walz is, his background, his family. Oh my gosh, Gus ugly crying had me nearly ugly crying. Just because he's so proud that that's his dad on the stage. It's such a surreal moment for that family. Again, not a wealthy family. They don't own multiple homes. They don't own a home, actually, to my understanding. They live in government housing. I mean, the governor's mansion in Minnesota, but and God willing, they'll live at the Naval Observatory for the next 4 years. And then in maybe 2028 or 2032, they'll buy their first family home. He hunts, he fishes, he's just everyman. He's the kind of guy that you'd run into and have small talk conversation at the Ace Hardware, for crying. He could be working at Ace Hardware for all you know. His display last night, the football team from, the players from the football team that he guided to a state championship, squeezing into their high school jerseys one more time for a moment of glory. Such a fantastic tableau. That was better, honestly, than the speech he gave. The speech he gave, again, the stump speech that he's been given for weeks now. It wasn't bad. It hasn't been seen by the nation on the whole. That's fantastic. So at this point, now that I've gloomed on about the representation of him being, I thought, A minus, let me give you the B minus, B plus speech. Here we go. Perfect song.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you, first of all, to Vice President Harris. Thanks for putting your trust in me and for inviting me to be part of this incredible campaign. And a thank you to President Joe Biden for 4 years of strong, historic leadership. It's the honor of my life to accept your nomination for Vice President of the United States. We're all here tonight for one beautiful, simple reason. We love this country. So thank you to all of you here in Chicago and all of you watching at home tonight. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for your determination. And most of all, thank you for bringing the joy to this fight. Now, I grew up in Butte, Nebraska, a town of 400 people. I had 24 kids in my high school class, and none of them went to Yale.
Honestly, not that there's anything wrong with that, though. Come on.
But I'll tell you what, growing up in a small town like that, you learn how to take care of each other. That family down the road, they may not think like you do. They may not pray like you do. They may not love like you do, but they're your neighbors. And you look out for them, and they look out for you. Everybody belongs, and everybody has a responsibility to contribute. For me, it was serving in the Army National Guard. I joined up 2 days after my 17th birthday, and I proudly wore our nation's uniform for 24 years. My dad, a Korean War era Army veteran, died of lung cancer a couple years later. He left behind a mountain of medical debt. Thank God for Social Security survivor benefits. And thank God for the GI Bill that allowed my dad and me to go to college, and millions of other Americans. Eventually, like the rest of my family, I fell in love with teaching. Three out of 4 of us married teachers. I wound up teaching social studies and coaching football at Mankato West High School. Go Scarlets! We ran a 44 defense. We played through to the whistle on every single play, and we even won a state championship. Never closed the yearbook, people. But it was those players and my students who inspired me to run for Congress. They saw in me what I had hoped to instill in them: a commitment to the common good, an understanding that we're all in this together, and the belief that a single person can make a real difference for their neighbors. So there I was, a 40-something high school teacher with little kids, 0 political experience, and no money, running in a deep red district. But you know what? Never underestimate a public school teacher. Never. I represented my neighbors in Congress for 12 years, and I learned an awful lot. I learned how to work across the aisle on issues like growing the rural economies and taking care of veterans. And I learned how to compromise without compromising my values. Then I came back to serve as governor, and we got right to work making a difference in our neighbors' lives. We cut taxes for the middle class. We passed paid family and medical leave. We invested in fighting crime and affordable housing. We cut the cost of prescription drugs and helped people escape the kind of medical debt that nearly sank my family.
Important distinction there.
And we made sure that every kid in our state gets breakfast and lunch every day.
The right calls that socialism.
So while other states were banning books from their schools, we were banishing hunger from ours. We also protected reproductive freedom because in Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and the personal choices they make. And even if we wouldn't make those same choices for ourselves, we've got a golden rule. Mind your own damn business.
See, I'm saying we've heard this all before. Good speech, it's just that we've heard this all before.
And that includes IVF and fertility treatments. And this is personal for Gwen and I. If you've never experienced the hell that is infertility, I guarantee you know somebody who has. And I can remember praying each night for a phone call. The pit in your stomach when the phone would ring, and the absolute agony when we heard the treatments hadn't worked. It took Gwen and I years, but we had access to fertility treatments. And when our daughter was born, we named her Hope. Hope, Gus, and Gwen, you are my entire world, and I love you.
Hope, giving the heart. Gus, ugly crying. This is when the waterworks kicked in. This was so powerful to see.
I'm letting you in on how we started a family because this is a big part about what this election is about. Freedom. When Republicans use the word freedom, they mean that the government should be free to invade your doctor's office. Corporations, free to pollute your air and water. And banks, free to take advantage of customers. But when we Democrats talk about freedom, we mean the freedom to make a better life for yourself and the people that you love. Freedom to make your own health care decisions. And yeah, your kids' freedom to go to school without worrying about being shot dead in the hall. Look, I know guns. I'm a veteran. I'm a hunter. And I was a better shot than most Republicans in Congress, and I got the trophies to prove it. But I'm also a dad. I believe in the Second Amendment, but I also believe our first responsibility is to keep our kids safe. That's what this is all about. The responsibility we have to our kids, to each other, and to the future that we're building together, in which everyone is free to build the kind of life they want.
We're reviewing day 3 of the Democratic National Convention right now, listening in on Vice President Tim Walz's acceptance speech. Going to take a quick break, come back. This is The Ron Show on America One Radio and Progressive Voices via TuneIn. Incidentally, there is a weekend version of The Ron Show on Progressive Voices via TuneIn, airing Saturday mornings at 10 a.m., I believe. I have no idea how I'm going to pack all of this week into one 15-minute episode of this show. It's kind of like what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to squeeze in about 18 and a half minutes of Tim Walz's speech into about 16 minutes, and I've got like 7 minutes left, and I've still got, well, let's just get right back to Tim Walz's speech last night.
But not everyone has that same sense of responsibility. Some folks just don't understand what it takes to be a good neighbor. Take Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. Their Project 2025 will make things much, much harder for people who are just trying to live their lives. They spent a lot of time pretending they know nothing about this. But look, I coached high school football long enough to know, and trust me on this, when somebody takes the time to draw up a playbook, they're going to use it. And we know if these guys get back in the White House, they'll start jacking up the costs on the middle class, they'll repeal the Affordable Care Act, they'll gut Social Security and Medicare, and they will ban abortion across this country with or without Congress. Here's the thing. It's an agenda nobody asked for. It's an agenda that serves nobody except the richest and the most extreme amongst us. And it's an agenda that does nothing for our neighbors in need.
I love the use of neighbors.
Is it weird? Absolutely. Absolutely. But it's also wrong. And it's dangerous. It's not just me saying so. It's Trump's own people. They were with him for 4 years. They're warning us that the next 4 years will be much, much worse. You know, when I was teaching every year, we'd elect a student body president. And you know what? Those teenagers could teach Donald Trump a hell of a lot about what a leader is. Leaders don't spend all day insulting people and blaming others. Leaders do the work. So I don't know about you. I'm ready to turn the page on these guys. So go ahead. Say it with me. We're not going back. We've got something better to offer the American people. It starts with our candidate, Kamala Harris. From her first day as a prosecutor, as a district attorney, as an attorney general, as a United States senator, and then our vice president, she's fought on the side of the American people. She's taken on the predators and fraudsters. She's taken down the transnational gangs, and she stood up to powerful corporate interests. She has never hesitated to reach across that aisle if it meant improving your lives. And she's always done it with energy, with passion, and with joy. Folks, we've got a chance to make Kamala Harris the next president of the United States. But I think we owe it to the American people to tell them exactly what she'd do as president before we ask them for their votes. So here, this is the part, clip and save it and send it to your undecided relatives so they know. If you're a middle-class family or a family trying to get into the middle class, Kamala Harris is going to cut your taxes. If you're getting squeezed by prescription drug prices, Kamala Harris is going to take on Big Pharma. If you're hoping to buy a home, Kamala Harris is going to help make it more affordable. And no matter who you are, Kamala Harris is going to stand up and fight for your freedom to live the life that you want to lead. Because that's what we want for ourselves, and it's what we want for our neighbors. You know, you might not know it, but I haven't given a lot of big speeches like this. But I have given a lot of pep talks. So let me finish with this, team. It's the fourth quarter. We're down a field goal, but we're on offense and we've got the ball. We're driving down the field. And boy, do we have the right team. Kamala Harris is tough. Kamala Harris is experienced, and Kamala Harris is ready. Our job for everyone watching is to get in the trenches and do the blocking and tackling. 1 inch at a time, 1 yard at a time, 1 phone call at a time, 1 door knock at a time, 1 $5 donation at a time. Look, we got 76 days. That's nothing. There'll be time to sleep when you're dead. We're going to leave it on the field. That's how we'll keep moving forward. That's how we'll turn the page on Donald Trump. That's how we'll build a country where workers come first. Healthcare and housing are human rights. And the government stays the hell out of your bedroom. That's how we make America a place where no child is left hungry, where no community is left behind, where nobody gets told they don't belong. That's how we're gonna fight. And as the next president of the United States always says, when we fight, when we fight, when we fight, thank you. God bless.
Again, solid speech. I just feel like I've heard a lot of it before. I sort of hope that Vice President Harris comes in with a new tactic on her stump speech as well. And maybe Michelle Obama just set the bar so high. Hillary Clinton set the bar so high earlier in the week that everybody else is just sort of like, I don't know. I will say this. The neighbor trope that Tim Walz really weaved in, really good. I'll expand on that in just a few minutes. Quick break. The Ron Show here on America One Radio and Progressive Voices via TuneIn.
This is The Ron Show on America One Radio.
I'm going to let you in on a little secret. As partisan as I obviously am, I actually don't like watching MSNBC during convention nights. Mostly because when it's the RNC convention, you're not going to get Rachel Maddow, Lawrence O'Donnell, Chris Hayes. You're not going to get good, honest, substantive feedback. I mean, you'll get a lot of you're not going to get some of the positives that came out of an RNC speech, if you can glean any. And you're not going to get many negatives out of the DNC spectacle that has been this past week. You're just not going to get a lot of the I will say this. Lawrence O'Donnell went on an old man rant last night about how late the convention nights have been going on. I agree, 1,000%, but I'm not going to be the old man grousing about it. Get your ball off my lawn. No, he's not wrong. The convention being in Chicago, maybe they just have central time zone brain, and they're like, "What? We're done by 11." Yes, central. Us East Coasters are up past midnight watching these things. Outside of that, I try not to watch too much of MSNBC because I want to scan the dial. I like going to see what Scott Jennings at CNN has to say. He, of course, the conservative on the CNN panel. I also, for the same reason, obviously don't like to watch Fox News during the RNC or DNC because it's just so over the top to the right. You can't find anything positive to say all this week on Fox News unless you're Jessica Tarlov. Bless her heart. So I don't watch the peripheries. I don't watch the MSNBCs, and I don't watch the Fox News too much. But I have to say, I was scanning last night, watching clips of some of the speeches and some of the responses to the speeches on the Twitter X platform last night. And something that Joy Reid said really, and listen, here's another thing I'm going to tell you about me. I don't like Joy Reid. I'm not crazy about Joy Reid. I'm sure she's nice. I maybe I just hold a 2016 grudge. I thought she was over the top, scathing and venomous at the Bernie Sanders campaign. And that vibe did nothing to unite the party. And maybe I just need to move on from it. It's been 8 years. I just sort of, for that reason, have decided I cannot embrace Joy Reid. And there are times where she gets a little hyperbolic. Last night, though, I thought something she said really resonated after Tim Walz's speech.
I think we just saw an episode of Ted Lasso, basically.
Yes.
If you watch that show, that's basically what this just was, right? I mean, I could see how he won football games. I could see being, the kids on that football team got a speech like that. No wonder they went from 0 wins to winning a championship. That man is really talented. And what's so cool about it, think about this. If you moved into a neighborhood and you moved onto a block where you had a really cool lady on one end of the street, Oprah, right? The really rich lady with the big house. But you also had the really cool musical family, John Legend. And then you also had the really sort of nerdy, guy with a McKinsey job and a cool husband and kid, Buttigieg. And then you've got the football coach and your favorite social studies teacher, the guy who coaches the football team, but who also gives you advice at Home Depot hospital for like a half an hour when you're like, roto-rooter or whatever in your house is broken. This is a neighborhood that anyone would want to live in. And
Yes.
that is what I have felt in this space, especially today. The Democrats have constructed the neighborhood that anybody would want to buy a house in and move their family to.
Yes, 1,000%. You know what? Again, it's hard for me to swallow my pride and say, boy, Joy Reid was really on it. Joy Reid was really on it last night. Would you rather live on a block with the eccentric super rich lady, Oprah, or Donald Trump at the end of your street? Would you rather live in a neighborhood with John Legend and Chrissy Teigen? And they're so cute. Or would you rather have Kid Rock down the block shooting at Bud Light cans in angry rage? Pete Buttigieg and Chasten and their cute kids. You could live with that, right? Joy Reid really, and of course Tim Walz, Coach Walz. You would want that kind of guy coaching your kids and teaching them social studies. Joy Reid really nailed it last night. God, it's so hard for me to say that. Speaking of the eccentric rich lady, let me give you some of the highlights of the Oprah speech, which I thought sort of ended a little. The Oprah voice thing kind of gave me the oogies, but whatever. Let's listen.
We're now so fired up. We can't wait to leave here and do something. And what we're going to do is elect Kamala Harris as the next president of the United States. I am so honored to have been asked to speak on tonight's theme about what matters most to me, to you, and all of us Americans: freedom. There are people who want you to see our country as a nation of us against them, people who want to scare you, who want to rule you, people who'd have you believe that books are dangerous and assault rifles are safe, that there's a right way to worship and a wrong way to love, people who seek first to divide and then to conquer. But here's the thing. When we stand together, it is impossible to conquer us. In the words of an extraordinary American, the late Congressman John Lewis, he said, no matter what ship our ancestors arrived on, we are all in the same boat now. Congressman Lewis knew very well how far this country has come because he was one of the brilliant Americans who helped to get us where we are. But he also knew that the work is not done. The work will never be done because freedom isn't free. America is an ongoing project. It requires commitment. It requires being open to the hard work and the heart work of democracy. And every now and then, it requires standing up to life's bullies. I know this. I've lived in Mississippi, in Tennessee, in Wisconsin, Maryland, Indiana, Florida, Hawaii, Colorado, California, and sweet home Chicago, Illinois. I have actually traveled this country from the redwood forest, love those redwoods, to the Gulf Stream waters. I've seen racism and sexism and income inequality and division. I've not only seen it, at times I've been on the receiving end of it. But more often than not, what I've witnessed and experienced are human beings, both conservative and liberal, who may not agree with each other, but who'd still help you in a heartbeat if you were in trouble. These are the people who make me proud to say that I am an American. They are the best of America. And despite what some would have you think, we are not so different from our neighbors. When a house is on fire, we don't ask about the homeowner's race or religion. We don't wonder who their partner is or how they voted. No. We just try to do the best we can to save them. And if the place happens to belong to a childless cat lady, well, we try to get that cat out too. Because we are a country of people who work hard for the money. We wish our brothers and sisters well, and we pray for peace. We know all the old tricks and tropes that are designed to distract us from what actually matters, but we are beyond ridiculous tweets and lies and foolery. These are complicated times, people, and they require adult conversation. And I welcome those conversations because civilized debate is vital to democracy, and it is the best of America. Now, over the last couple of nights, we have all seen brave people walk onto the stage and share their most private pain. Amanda and Josh, Caitlin, Hadley, they told us their stories of rape and incest and near-death experiences from having the state deny them the abortion that their doctor explained was medically necessary. And they've told us these things for one reason, and that is to keep what happened to them from happening to anybody else. Because if you do not have autonomy over this, if you cannot control when and how you choose to bring your children into this world and how they are raised and supported, there is no American dream. The women and men who are battling to keep us from going back to a time of desperation and shame and stone cold fear, they are the new freedom fighters. And make no mistake, they are the best of America. I want to talk now about somebody who's not with us tonight. Tessie Prevost Williams was born in New Orleans not long after the Supreme Court ruled that segregated public schools were unconstitutional. That was in 1954, same year I was born. But I didn't have to head to first grade at the all-white Madonna 19 school with a U.S. Marshal by my side like Tessie did. And when I got to school, the building wasn't empty like it was for Tessie. You see, rather than allowing Madonna to be integrated, parents pulled their kids out of the school, leaving only Tessie and two other little black girls, Gail Etienne and Leona Tate, to sit in a classroom with the windows papered over to block snipers from attacking their 6-year-old bodies. Tessie passed away 6 weeks ago. And I tell this story to honor her tonight because she like Ruby Bridges and her friends, Leona and Gail, the New Orleans Four, they were called. They broke barriers, and they paid dearly for it. But it was the grace and guts and courage of women like Tessie Prevost Williams that paved the way for another young girl who 9 years later became part of the second class to integrate the public schools in Berkeley, California. And it seems to me that at school and at home, somebody did a beautiful job of showing this young girl how to challenge the people at the top and empower the people at the bottom. They showed her how to look at the world and see not just what is, but what can be. They instilled in her a passion for justice and freedom and the glorious fighting spirit necessary to pursue that passion. And soon and very soon, we're going to be teaching our daughters and sons about how this child of an Indian mother and a Jamaican father, two idealistic, energetic immigrants, how this child grew up to become the 47th President of the United States. That is the best of America. You know, let me tell you this. This election isn't about us and them. It's about you and me and what we want our futures to look like. There are choices to be made when we cast our ballot. Now, there's a certain candidate that says if we just go to the polls this one time, that we'll never have to do it again. Well, you know what? You're looking at a registered independent who's proud to vote again and again and again because I'm an American and that's what Americans do. Voting is the best of America.
Oprah Winfrey, and I'll give you a little bit more of her when we come back from a quick break. My thing is about Oprah, like registered independent. Okay, sure. I'm not buying that, first of all. Second of all, where has she been? Like, this speech should have been given in 2016 and wasn't. Obviously, 2020, we'll give everybody a mulligan on that because it was such a strange cycle. But I'm listening to Oprah and the passion that she has, and I'm thinking, where has this... You know, this country, specifically those of us center left, have been looking at folks like Oprah in response to folks like Trump. If we're going to have a celebrity leader, why not someone who is, I don't know, sane and actually successful? Anyway, more of Oprah's speech, and we've got to talk about the BLS jobs numbers revisions and give some folks on the right a little bit of a reminder that the BLS, what they do in inexact science, and even in the Donald Trump era, there were some revisions that they don't want us to remember. When The Ron Show returns on America One Radio and Progressive Voices via TuneIn. Every day you get show notes at RonShowATL.com, by the way. I do that because sometimes I want to give you guys the citations you need to take on the social media right-wingers to respond to their nonsense. For example, yesterday, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, say that 5 times fast, revised their 2023 to March 2024 jobs numbers down from 2.9 million jobs gained to 2.1 million jobs gained. Still a gain, but still a downward revision of 800,000. And Donald Trump, Truth Social, talking about the huge scandal this is. The BLS has been cooking the numbers for Joe Biden, blah, 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 blah. Donald Trump and his MAGA cultists seem to forget that there was a similar revision that happened on his watch, August of 2019. Here's Kai Ryssdal from Marketplace.
This is Marketplace. I'm Kai Ryssdal. You might have heard in the business and economic ether the past day or so some hubbub about the labor market and how there's some new data out that says the U.S. jobs market is a whole lot weaker than we'd thought. Well, yeah, maybe, but also kind of not really. The Bureau of Labor Statistics did say there were about 500,000 fewer jobs created March 2018 to March 2019 than it had been guessing. Two things about that. Number one, that word there, guessing,
yes,
estimated is what economists like to say. That's key. Also, number two, revisions like this are totally normal.
Yes.
But also actually three, as Marketplace's Mitchell Hartman reports, this right now is an interesting time in this economy.
The number crunchers at the Bureau of Labor Statistics don't actually count all the jobs in the economy every month. That would be impossible.
Exactly.
Instead, they estimate based on a sample of employers, says BLS economist John Stewart.
We have about 142,000 establishments.
That's out of a total of 9 to 10 million businesses with employees. So once a year, BLS compares its job numbers with an actual count from state unemployment systems.
To correct for any errors that have accumulated in our survey estimates.
Most years, the revisions aren't so dramatic.
And some years they are. 2023 to 2024, 2018 to 2019, when Joe Biden wasn't president, but Donald Trump actually was. Anyway, I'll have that linked from Market Watch and some other, I think there was like a there's a Washington Post column that talks about Donald Trump kind of distorting the facts. Shocker when it comes to the BLS revision. Always more to the story than Donald Trump's willing to tell his fanatics. I do want to close the show with the rest of Oprah's speech, which I thoroughly enjoyed, except for the whole Oprah voice at the end.
And I have always, since I was eligible to vote, I've always voted my values. And that is what is needed in this election now more than ever. So I'm calling on all you independents and all you undecideds. You know this is true. You know I'm telling you the truth, that values and character matter most of all.
Which brings me to former Trump administration official Olivia Troy.
4 years ago, I resigned from the Trump administration. As a Republican who dreamed of working in the White House, it was a hard decision. But as an American, it was the right one. I saw how Donald Trump undermined our intelligence community, our military leaders, and ultimately our democratic process. Now, he's doing it again, lying and laying the groundwork to undermine this election. It's his MO, to sow doubt and division. That's what Trump wants, because it's the only way he wins. And that's what our foreign adversaries want, because it's the only way they win.
And former Georgia Lieutenant Governor Republican Jeff Duncan.
I realized Trump was a direct threat to democracy, and his actions disqualified him from ever stepping foot into the Oval Office again. I could spend my time revving up this crowd, but I'm certain I don't have to talk anybody out of voting for Donald Trump here. So I'm going to focus my attention on the millions of Republicans and independents that are at home that are sick and tired of making excuses for Donald Trump. If Republicans are being intellectually honest with ourselves, our party is not civil or conservative. It's chaotic and crazy, and the only thing left to do is dump Trump. These days, our party acts more like a cult worshiping a felonious thug. Look, you don't have to agree with every policy position of Kamala Harris. I don't. But you do have to recognize her prosecutor mindset that understands right from wrong, good from evil. She's a steady hand and will bring leadership to the White House that Donald Trump could never do. Let me be clear to my Republican friends at home watching. If you vote for Kamala Harris in 2024, you're not a Democrat, you're a patriot.
Republicans making a hell of a case for the Democratic Party ticket last night. That's going to do it for today's Ron Show. Show notes, including all the links to these speeches, marketplace data from 2018 to 2019, the BLS data we've forgotten on the right. All that and more at RonShowATL.com. Back here tomorrow, 9 to 10 a.m., 5 to 6 p.m. on America One Radio, 7 to 8, Progressive Voices via TuneIn. Have a great day.